Good morning, good morning, good morning, and hello to our listeners from around the world. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another great edition of This Morning with Soulivity. We have a fantastic show for you with a fantastic guest, which we'll have in our second half hour. But before we get started, of course, I want to welcome two beautiful souls who are also Soulivity co-host and collaborators, Teresa Greco and Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. Hello, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning, Brian and Teresa, and
Good
listening
morning.
audience.
Yeah, good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning. I know it's a little, for us, it's always early, right? I mean, we may be early risers, but it's always, we have to get up early to prepare and all that kind of thing. Um, Before we begin, I want to make sure that our uh, audience knows, listen, we want your questions, we want your comments and your thoughts. Please post them right in the chat on either Facebook or YouTube. It's important to us. We want you to interact with the content that we provide you, and we want to really have a real conversation that empowers you. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our first hot topic? And I'll go to you. I think, Dr. Chanel, you have something real juicy for us to talk about today.
Absolutely, Brian. But I can't not make mention because I don't know where our listening audiences are, but just make sure everybody is safe and warm after the snow storm from
Oh
yesterday.
yeah. I
Yeah,
was reading. I mean, I'm in here in DC. You guys are in two colder climates in North America. Dr. Chanel, you're in Detroit.
right.
Teresa, you're outside of Toronto.
Yes.
Teresa, yeah. And so you guys got dumped on over the
Yes,
last 24 hours.
we
You got
really did, Brian. We really did. And all of our schools were closed yesterday, and a lot of them remain closed today. And for me, it's a great day, and it's called a no makeup day at home. So I
well, hey,
worked from home yesterday. Yeah.
that's beautiful. And Teresa, I mean, you got like 12 inches there too.
Yes, possibly just that much. I know it was supposed to be 8 to
Wow.
12. The northern regions tend to get a little bit more than where I live.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's snow day for everybody here too. So
Wow. Well, again, we'll send our prayers and support for everybody who got snowed upon over the
Yes.
last 24 36 hours. And please be safe. If you have
Yes.
to go out and drive, please go slow. Pay attention to the emergency responders and what they're telling you. If they say turn around, turn around. Um,
Absolutely.
and so, thanks for that, Dr. Chanel. That's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
Brian, that actually leads me right into today's hot topic, which is commitment.
Wow.
Commitment. And the reason I bring this up partly is because we're heading into the end of the month, the end of the new year, the first month of the year where we, started our year. And we even started on this broadcast with, talking about our ideas, our goals, our plans, and, getting off to a great start. So I'd like to, basically do a commitment check in and see where
I like
everyone
that.
is.
I like
And
that.
then more recently, yesterday, with the snowstorm, I still kept my commitment, and I observed me keeping my commitment, and that is to work out. So my workout class, I think you all know now, I've probably said it a dozen times. My workout is at 6 a.m. in the morning on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And
Mhm.
even though the snow was coming down and I knew there was a snowstorm coming, I still kept my commitment to go work out. And I texted my
Wow.
instructor the night before and I asked, are we still having class? And he didn't text until the morning because, he's an 8-hour sleeper. So he didn't respond until the morning. And he still said, yes, of course we're having class. And of course I was there. And of course everyone else was too. So I want to bring this topic up because as we are trying to go to that next level, as we're
Mhm.
trying to make big things happen in our lives, it really does boil down to commitment. What are you
Mm.
committed to? Whether it snows, whether it rains, 'cause I
Right.
know runners too, and they still keep their 5 a.m. run. And so I wonder, I want to talk about the importance of commitment in accomplishing your goals. So let me first just start off with a very unsexy definition of commitment. And that is simply commitment is the state quality of being dedicated to a cause or an activity. So essentially, it's doing something that you said you want or you desire and taking action no matter what. So, no matter what comes your way, you are still taking action, hopefully every day, towards accomplishing your big goal. So, I'm going to open it up to you all and see just your initial thoughts on this topic and see where we go. I want to go into, what are you committed to? What do you have in place to keep your commitments? And then we'll talk about some tips on how we can get recommitted if that's the case and we need to do that.
Mm.
So why don't we just open it up? Teresa, do you have some thoughts on commitment?
Yeah, thank you. So I heard a stat the other day that for those of us that have New Year resolutions, that by 32 days, many of us fall off and are no longer committed to some of the plans and goals and aspirations we have coming into this new year. And so that February 1st is kind of like that deadline date. And so
Right.
yeah, I mentioned it in one of my online talks last night, saying that, if you make it to February 1st and you still find yourself committed, you're doing a pretty good job, because the majority of people tend to fall off around the 32-day mark. So, I think that it's comforting to know you're not alone if you fall off. Not to say, well, I'm not, because then we want to start guilting ourselves and shaming ourselves and not being compassionate. And that, depending on the type of goals we set out for ourselves, sometimes, and the gap between where we are and where we want to be is big, right? And we don't, when we set these goals, we don't necessarily think about that gap. And if the gap is really large, then I think that level of commitment, therefore, is going to have to be a little bit higher.
Mhm,
And we know that it all comes down to mindset.
mhm.
In
Right.
the end, it's all about the mindset. But I think we can incorporate some tools that can help us to remain committed, especially if that gap is really big. So, I want to lose 50 pounds instead of just like maybe 5, right? Or, changing your entire diet, dropping alcohol, like, those really uh, habits that are ingrained a little bit stronger within us, right? Then that
Right.
gap
Mhm.
is a little bit bigger. So I think commitment is a really big topic, and I'm excited to talk about this morning. But I just, for my first initial thoughts, I was like, well, for those of us get to February 1st, yay. For those of us that don't, it's okay, because every day is a new day.
Right.
Every day is a fresh start. Every day is a clean slate. So it's never too late to get back on the horse, back on the wagon. I love idioms, but I get them wrong all the time. I feel like I got these ones wrong too, but it's never too late to get back on, because every day is a fresh start. And even when I, you know, fall off a little bit, the next morning I'm like, it's okay, fresh day. There's
Right.
I can recommit. I can recommit to,
Yeah.
whatever it was that, I set out to do or to change.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely come back to that notion of recommitment. Brian, how about you? What are your initial thoughts?
Um, I always I love this topic, by the way. When I think about commitment, I always think about my dad. Um,
Mm,
he for me, he was the prototype, one of the prototypes outside of his father, around, those big concepts that revolve around living your authentic self, like truth, responsibility, accountability, commitment,
mhm,
respect, all these things that define a person, as a person of integrity. And So I'm glad that you talked about that you want to talk about commitment, because I always think about this one saying, and I can't remember where it's from. I have to look it up, but it always is on my mind as I go through every day, and that is, make mountains stepping stones, seize
Yes,
victory from defeat, right?
yes,
And you don't get to the victory unless you commit to making the mountain stepping stones, right?
mhm,
And living your life from a place where you keep moving forward, you commit to moving forward, you commit to becoming aware of those things that may be holding you back from moving forward, but it's commitment on top of commitment on top of commitment on top of commitment.
yes,
And and I know it's not easy sometimes, and like Teresa said, you get, a lot of times you have to give yourself a break and say, listen, I didn't reach that mountaintop today, but there's always tomorrow, and so I'll try again tomorrow.
mhm,
And as long as you keep trying and you keep moving forward and you commit to your uh self growth, self awareness, you will get to the victory. I completely believe in that. And that, one other thing on this, celebrate the commitment as you're committing, right?
Mhm.
So celebrate the journey as you're going along the path of, bettering yourself, creating a better life for yourself, manifesting all those things that you want in your life, figuring out maybe even what your purpose is, what your passion is, figuring out what does it really mean to have a high quality life, all that. So thank you for choosing this topic, because it's stated a lot of times, but we don't really dive down deep into it sometimes, because it's like, oh yeah, commitment. Okay. All right. I got that.
right. I agree, Brian, and this
What about
commitment
you?
yeah, this commitment, it can be life-changing. It can really change your life once you get committed. I like what you said, Brian, about make mountains stepping stones.
Mhm.
So that reminds me of every day, take a step. A
Yeah.
lot of times, like Teresa was saying, sometimes things can be so big, our goal or ambition or the gap can be so big. But even as we break things down, we can still take one step every day. It's like writing a book, it's an enormous undertaking, but every day you can write a paragraph, you can read on your topic, you can take one step closer every single day. So then that way it doesn't appear too out of reach and you're able to make progress. I think sometimes we don't see the progress. Other people actually
Yeah.
can see it. Sometimes
Yeah.
we can't see it, and so then we might, sort of slack off, but underneath your stepping stones, you're getting closer and closer to that mountain and accomplishing what you really want to accomplish. And I also like
Absolutely.
what you said about celebrating the journey. That's something that I definitely have to continue to work on, and that probably could be one of our tips. But even as you're going along trying to celebrate a milestone, I think I just keep going and going and going, and I never take the time to really, assess my progress and to celebrate. But I think that would be another step in the right direction, actually.
Right.
You also brought up when you talked about your dad, Brian, you talked about some very lofty characteristics. One of those being integrity. I wanna
Yes.
stretch and tease that out a little bit as it relates to commitment.
Mhm.
And so this commitment that we're making, hopefully we're making it to ourself first. So
Right.
if we have the lofty goal of, let's say something like losing weight or writing a book or starting a school for girls, hello. Um, it's the integrity that we hold with ourselves that really makes us hopefully keeps us motivated to take the next step and even if we don't even know what that next step is, sometimes it will be revealed to us as we take another step. But the integrity is keeping your word to yourself.
Mm, mm,
Like,
mm.
let's put some respect on our commitment,
I
right?
love it. I love
If
it.
we are, when we go into if you have a job or even as a business owner and you've got partners, do you keep your commitments to your partner, to your employer? What if we use that same level of integrity or quote unquote commitment to ourselves? I wonder what difference that would make if we are committed and keep our word to ourselves.
Wow.
So let's introduce integrity and see where that sits with you both.
Mm, mm, mm. I think you already kind of know where I feel about it. Um, I think like Teresa, you talk about sometimes in uh, your programming about living your authentic self, right? I think that's integrity at its highest level. That you are aware of not all of yourself, but that you are aware that you are a soul, that you have needs, wants, desires, um, that you want to serve humanity. I think that's another important part around integrity. Um, because I think a lot of times integrity is thought of as how others perceive you.
Mhm.
But I think Dr. Chanel, when you talked about like the first step is that you honor yourself, right? In all of who you are.
Yes,
And then how that relates to our world, that's the vehicle through integrity, right? And
mhm,
so I think commitment and integrity go hand in hand, especially if you're committed to the beautiful journey of self-discovery.
absolutely. Teresa, what about you?
Yeah, it's I'm just trying to process what Brian said, and which I totally agree with. And I think that when we really love ourselves and want to honor and respect ourselves, I think that it just overflows into everyone around us. That, part
Mhm.
of my happiness journey was that I felt that people were always disrespecting me, always dishonoring me in different ways. And it was
Mm,
because I wasn't doing it for myself first. That
wow.
because I was trying to live up to external expectations. And I think, that this ties into commitment, that if our commitments are tied to living up to external expectations instead of living up to our own, then we're not going to have integrity too in what we're doing, but I think we're less likely to be committed. So let's evaluate the type of commitments, the type of things that we're saying yes to, the type of things that we're trying to live up to, those shoulds and have to statements. I should do this because it's expected of me. I should do this because that's what a good mom does. I should do this because that's what a good friend, a good wife, a good whatever does, but not being true to yourself in the process. And then those are the things I think we're more likely to maybe not follow through on because they're not really true to who we are. And so that, even as I'm saying this aloud, I'm like, I really need to think about the things that I'm committing to right now, because am I committing to them because it's for me, or am I committing to them because society is imposed these things on me, right? To
Mhm,
think, well, if
mhm,
I only I'd be a little bit more like this or a little less like this, then people might like me more. People might accept me more. I might be more, approved in other people's eyes. And therefore we kind of fall off because really it's not something, the why behind what we're doing is always, the most important. We always hear that, go back to your why, go back to your why. Well, the why really needs to be true to ourselves, and as Brian said, being our true and authentic self. And I think when we have commitments that are tied to that, we are more apt to follow through. And the ones that we're falling off, it's probably because they're ones that we've imposed on ourselves from the external. And in a way, we're not honoring and respecting ourselves in that process. And so, just to go back to my original comment, is that when I started to do that for myself, is that I can't even explain it. It's like magically, all of a sudden, on the outside, everyone was honoring and respecting me. And I was like, what the heck? I've had problems with you like my whole life. I have no problems with you. And it's like, I didn't say anything. I didn't tell anyone that they needed to change. All the truth was I was the one that needed to show up differently in my own life. I needed to change for myself. And really, we know that the external is always a mirror, a reflection for who we really are and how we're showing up. And so it makes sense now. But when I was going through it, I thought, this is weird. Like, how is it that all of a sudden I'm not having all these disagreements with people? It was because I was showing up differently in my own life. So thank you so much for this discussion, because now it's going to cause me to think about the things that I've committed to and the why behind those commitments,
Yeah.
and whether those whys are ones that have been imposed upon me by the external, or those are ones that are truly coming forth from the truth and essence of who I am. And that is the place that I want to go forth and live from, is am I on path for my life? Am I on purpose in my life? And that is only going to come from us, living from that space within us, rather
Right.
than looking external for that type of direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know, Brian, you want to take a break, and let's pick this up after the break.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be back in about 60 seconds, everybody.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Well, this
Hello and good morning. This is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to This Morning with Soulivity. We have a very special guest who is in our green room right now. It's founder and CEO of womenworking.com. She's going to be coming up in just a second, but we're talking about commitment with my beautiful co-host, Teresa Greco and Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. So, Dr. Chanel, you wanted to give everybody some tips on commitment, correct?
Yes, yes. And just to acknowledge, Teresa, you made some really good points, and those really kind of spill into some of the tips. And that is, first of all, yes, let's figure out what we are committed to. And if that commitment is internally driven, or is it externally driven, meaning it is put upon us, or we have adopted someone else's external goals, dreams, plans? Do we have our own? And are they aligned to the values that are most salient, most important to us? So that requires some self-reflection. And so that would be a really good place to start, is to examine the why. And then don't make too many commitments, right? We want quality commitments to what is really important to us, and then figuring out what are the essential actions that we need to take every day to take those steps, Brian, that you talked about every day to get to the mountain, right? And then don't make commitments impulsively. You know, um, be very mindful when you make a commitment, and make sure that it is meaningful from the heart space, that you can take action every day to follow through. And what you'll find, like I did yesterday when I still went and worked out at 6 a.m. in the morning in the snowstorm, is that it gives you an elevated boost in your confidence. because you know that you are keeping your word, you're keeping your integrity to yourself. So that will increase your self-reliance on you, knowing that you can depend on you and you can have some self-trust. And then you should increase in your efficiency, right, in accomplishing your goals when you dig down and get committed. Please share, Brian or Teresa, any other tips that come to mind for us staying
Hmm.
committed.
Wow. I think the only thing that I can think of is that, and this is more of a kind of sustaining kind of thing. Um, and I've talked about it a little bit earlier. Give yourself the time and the space to be committed over time. You do not need to, if like you were talking about working out, you do not need to do a 2-hour workout your first time.
Right.
You can commit to a 5-minute workout, and then you commit to doing that on a consistent basis, whatever works. But allow yourself to let that commitment become a very positive habit for yourself in a very easy way. You'll find that it'll be much easier for you to do it if you give yourself that tender loving care along the way.
Absolutely.
And I want to say, close out by saying, ensure that you're loving yourself in the process and not shaming and guilting
Mm,
yourself. This is something that I'm becoming more and more aware as soon as my mind goes to that place like, oh, Teresa, you're such a loser. Oh, Teresa, you
mm,
have no willpower. Oh,
mm.
Teresa, right away I go to that place. That's that negative Nelly in the head that wants to, poo poo on you as soon as you've done something that is, off track. And my mind wants to go. And many of us are like that, where that
Right.
negative Nelly comes in and starts saying mean and rude and untrue things to us. And those are all lies that if you then think about all of the things in your life that you are committed to, we know that we can remain committed. We know we can commit to things. So I just want to remind people to be mindful, as Dr. Chanel said, of the thoughts behind it, the why behind it, being very present. That as soon as you find your mind going in that direction, to call it back and say, "It's okay. I'm going to start again."
Woo.
Yes, and Brian, one last thing that you said that I'm going to be working on is to celebrate those steps and those milestones along your journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was a great topic. Thank you, Dr. Chanel.
My pleasure, Brian.
Well, listen, everybody. We have a very special guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, womenworking.com founder, HELENE LERNER. And so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking to her about her new book, Time for Me. We'll be back in about 30 seconds this time.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we're back with Soulivity, and this morning with Soulivity, and we want to welcome everybody from around the world. We're at the bottom of the hour, and we have a very special guest and a dear friend of mine that is coming up. But let's learn a little bit more about her first.
Our guest today is HELENE LERNER, the founder of womenworking.com and so much more. She's a television host, Emmy Award-winning executive producer, workplace consultant, and prolific author of 14 different books. And her social media following is 19 million and growing. She began her career as a teacher, later working her way up through the management ranks of the New York Times. Now as CEO of Creative Expansions Inc., a multimedia company, her mission is to empower women and girls. In her latest book, Time for Me, Helene offers women trying to do it all what she calls 4 power keys so that they can enjoy a more joyful and balanced life. For women who are out in the trenches every day trying to do too much, this book offers simple pleasures to nourish your spirit and simple solutions to find time for yourself. Summon the courage to do things differently. It's your life and it only happens once. Why not make it a great one, says Helene.
And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome to this morning my dear friend, HELENE LERNER. Hello, HELENE.
Hello, terrific folks. Thank you for all your good stuff. I learned a lot about commitment as I was listening to you, and the world needs every bit of your positive energy now.
Yes.
Oh my
Yay.
goodness. See, that's why I love you. You just bring the noise and the funk.
You know, Brian, I think we all need to wake up. We listen throughout the day to that constant drone. I think Teresa was saying that negativity in our minds, that negative mind talk, it's almost like a radio station, a low, horrible radio station that tells us we're not enough, we should be doing more, nothing we do, I'll never make it, all of it. And I think we need megaphones of positivity. And that, by the way, I have 20 million followers now.
Oh, see there? 1 million since we talked last. Wow.
And you know what? People they keep coming back because they need to hear this. All of us know in our core that we're here to make a difference, each of us in different ways. And yet, we spend most of the day listening to the drone that doesn't allow us to step out and do it. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh man. Well, I love the fact that you have this beautiful new book, Time for Me. And another important, you're committed to women and helping women have a better life. I mean, also men, but women have there's special things that women need that I think men have taken for granted for a long time.
But you know what, Brian, I hear men, I do a lot of corporate events, and I hear men talking a little bit differently these days.
Oh, really?
Maybe
Tell us
COVID
more.
has put a light under the fire of all of us. Because I heard a man who was on one of my panels talk about the fact that he had imposter syndrome. Ladies, have you ever heard a man saying that he had imposter syndrome?
Wow.
That's usually something a woman would say, not a man.
Wow.
So maybe things are shifting a little bit.
Wow. Well, tell us about this new book.
First I want to say
Mhm.
to all your listeners and to your wonderful hosts that this time isn't easy. And we've come out of 2.5 years of constant stressors, and mental health issues around the world are big right now. And even though we're getting back and trying to figure out what this new normal is, many of us are in the workplace and it's hybrid. We're negotiating for things. It ain't easy.
Right.
This is not an easy time. So if you are struggling with feelings of anxiety or even depression, we've started a new year. Of course, we want to start it right. But I want to say to people who are listening, all your feelings are okay. And one of the things I would like to communicate is there is help available. And reaching out for help, which is something I say in the book, is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. So why did we bring this book out right now? I originally wrote the book in 2015, and this is a new version and a wonderful journal, interactive, user-friendly version. But the last 2.5 years for women have been horrendous. You know, not only have we been on the job, but we've also been taking care of the kids or having to deal with elder care, often not in the state that we live in. So it's been a real strain on many of us. And what I'm hearing from these corporate events and all the different things that I'm doing is that we're exhausted. We're exhausted. In fact, I'm exhausted, and I needed to read my own book today. So you're asking me, why did I come out with this book at this time? Because I need the constant reminder that no matter how busy I am in the day, that I'm not a human doing, that I'm a human being, and that I need recharge as much as the next person. And this book is so user-friendly. We have loads of tips, loads of strategies. It's not a heavy read. It's kind of, look at that page. They designed it so beautifully. I want to take a hot bath and just take the book and get into my chair and read it. So it's filled with really practical things that make sense for us. And there is no reason, ladies out there, that we can't schedule one thing every day just for us. And I just want to say something, and I'd love to hear your comments, questions, anything. But I think sometimes women take on guilt. In other words, and guilt is useless. We take on the guilt that if we're doing something for ourselves, that our family comes first, work comes first. But the truth is, if we take time for us and pencil in even a little thing each day, we benefit, our families benefit, and frankly, the world benefits from it, because if we make a difference and feel we're not running on empty, but we're giving our best selves because we've filled the tank, then everyone benefits. Not just, so it's not selfish. It's actually self-full. Helps everyone, not just you.
Wow. You up in here having church, Helene. I mean, because I'm taking this in as a man as well. You know?
Amen.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Chanel, you had a question for Helene.
Well, not necessarily a question, Brian and Helene. It's just awesome to be in the same space with you. But when you mentioned the word exhausted, that was something that I had already written down, because I tend to go nonstop, and I'm also a coach, and so the women that I work with, that's one of the main things that they are attracted to me about, is because they are often exhausted from trying to hold it all together all the time. And so when I think about maybe being committed, like we talked about in the first half, maybe we need to commit to our self-care.
Yes.
And with that, like you said, one thing a day, whether it's a hot bath, because for me, when I come home after I've done everything and I've gone to the meetings in the evening, then I come home and I just veg out on the couch. Well, you can say that's self-care, but that's not, and Brian and I talked about that. That's not intentional. That is just flat out exhausted. I just need to the point where I'm intentionally doing my self-care on a regular daily basis, if possible. So any thoughts on that? I would love to.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's the truth, and everyone is experiencing this right now. But self-care doesn't have to cost money. Yes, I love to go to spas. I love to get massages. I like to get my nails done, but it doesn't have to cost money. It can be deep breathing in the day. Brian, if we were visual, I was doing a lot of publicity this week, and I was showing people, I have flowers all over my home office. I buy them. That is my one. I love the colors of flowers, and I make little arrangements. I put it on my desk. I put it on the tables, and I just get away from my computer
Mhm.
and I look at the flowers. That's just a minute or so, but I'm filling myself up with some beauty. Um,
Wow.
Deep breathing during the day. When I'm tense, awareness is key. In the book, I talk about 4 power keys, and
Mhm.
one is clarity, and it's really awareness. When you start feeling that neck, you know what I'm like? And then
Mhm.
when that neck starts tensing up, you start feeling like you're getting a migraine or your
Mhm.
shoulders are way above next to your head. That's the time to stop.
Right.
Take a deep breath. What I realize is when I'm like that, I'm not breathing. So,
Mhm.
right now, ladies and gentlemen, let's all take 3 deep breaths.
Right.
Those are the first 3 conscious breaths that I've taken today.
Wow.
You know what I heard in my inner voice, which I listen to and I talk about in the book about intuition? I heard all is well.
Yes.
Usually, when I'm so tense and feeling tight, my fear level is up.
Mhm.
And it's like I'm running someplace, which I don't even know where I'm running to. But if I take those breaths and then let that inner voice be heard, take a while to just tune in when I'm hearing, it's okay, Helene. I call myself my little girl, Leanie. It's
Mhm.
okay, Leanie. All is well. All is well. Now, from that space, go to the next activity. Do you know what you've just given yourself? Sanity.
Right.
Peace.
Woo! Is it that, I'm thinking about the scripture, peace be still.
Oh, nice.
And I've just felt that with those breaths. Listen, why don't we take a
Wait,
quick
wait,
break?
Brian,
Mhm.
finish the statement. Peace be still. Know that I am God, right?
God, thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. See, we're having church in here, y'all. Listen, we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have more with the beautiful soul that is Helene Lerner.
You can find all the Satana products at our Go shop on Soulivity at go.soulivity.com now. Shop for beauty products, skincare, hair care. It is all there at the Go shop. Go shop Soulivity.
And good morning to everyone. This is Brian Wesley Johnson with my co-host, Teresa Greco and Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. Our special guest today is Helene Lerner, the founder of womenworking.com. And we're talking about her latest book, Time for Me, Self-Care and Simple Pleasures for Women Who Do Too Much. I had to
Yes,
say it just like that, who do too much.
Yeah.
yes.
And Teresa, you had a question or comment for Helene.
Yes, thank you. Helene, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. And I also feel so honored to be in this space and to be able to have this discussion with you this morning.
Thank you.
My question is, I wanted to pivot just a little bit because what I'm curious to know is, since you've been in the women empowerment space for so long, for different decades, I'm wondering, in your opinion, how you feel we as women are coming along with empowerment, with equality, And I didn't, I kind of paused there because I didn't want to say, with feminism, I didn't want to use that word, but I don't know if you will. So I just would love to know what's, in your opinion, how are we doing?
Well, you know what? I thank you for the question. I think with the whole pandemic, it's really thrown people off, not just women, men too. And I'm not saying in relation to your question, I think our balance has been, it's like the rug has been pulled from under us. And that might have been a good thing, because if you look in the corporate workplace, you see how things would have taken 10 years to do were done almost in a month, where everything was put online. People were talking through Zoom, through podcasts. So we took a terrible time and we made something good of it. I think what also happened with all the killings that were going on, with political unrest that was happening, is I bring up the show Network. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Mad
angry,
as hell.
and I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it
Take it
anymore.
anymore.
So that's how, throwing us off balance, the things that we could tolerate in the past, many of us weren't tolerating, and that's men and women. And I think that's a good thing, because it created, I'm not saying the killings were a good thing, but that we weren't going to tolerate some of the things we had tolerated. I see in corporations things like bias coming about. It's still there. It takes a long time to change corporate culture, but there's movement there. In terms of women, what I think is that we are, and men too, but I'm talking to the women now, that we're leaders. We're natural leaders. No matter what level you're at, who knows better than you? And what women need to do is speak up more. And in terms of empowerment, that they pick their issue, because if they don't and speak up about everything, they're not going to be listened to. But they pick their issue, and it's not enough, not with what's going on in the world, to sit back anymore. We must let our voice be heard. And I have a new definition of confidence. Brian knows this from my last book, Confidence Booster. It's moving forward when you think you can make a difference, even with shaky knees. Confidence we think someone else has, they don't have. I was told by she was the CEO of a company. She said in 2008, I was the chief marketing officer, and I told a group of senior leaders, we're not doing recession. We're focusing on growth. And she said to me, HELENE, you've seen my knees. They were shaking under the table. So the bottom line is, don't, when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, it ain't going to feel comfortable.
Right.
You may have shaky knees, but it's not good enough for you to sit back. And I'm talking to everyone out there at whatever level you're at.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah, I'm a little speechless, and that's unusual. Because HELENE, these are principles that are for the 21st century, with the amount of information and media and everything else that floods our zone every single day, that's on top of just our day-to-day existence, that includes our dreams, our aspirations, if we're parents, our children. And I think it's important for us all to really take what you're talking about in, because I look at this as you're talking about creating what I always call is a best life, not just a good life, your best life. And you live it today and you learn how to live it more and more every day. Um, One thing around the best life that I'm making this turn real quick is guess what, Helene?
What?
We have winners of your book that we want to announce really quickly.
Ooh, yay.
So I want to just announce that we had winners from Monday through Wednesday. We were randomly picking out people who are part of the Soulivity community and that, follow us on social media. And these are the first three. There's two more that we're going to announce in a minute. And that's Nicole Grant from Michigan in the United States, Brenda Hermel in Nevada, and Teresa Melianek in Virginia, this right in my neck of the woods. So we want to thank Source Books for also supporting us in this endeavor. And for the winners in this first round, there's going to be another round in just a second. We're going to be announcing those folks. Source Books is going to be reaching out to you so that you can get your book. This is great.
This
is great.
Right.
I know. So
Brian, I want to summarize a few things from the book that
absolutely, go for it.
are universal and
Absolutely.
that I need to hear. So hopefully you'll need to hear too.
Go for it.
So a few things. Look at your time bandits. Keep track. I'm not giving you a heavy assignment out there, folks, but keep track of how you're using your time during the day. And I learned this in a time management course years ago. You have your A, your B, and your C's. The A's are the things that only you can do. So you want to keep those. But the B's and the C's, are they really that important? Can you put them off? And the reason why I'm saying this is because once you look at your time bandits, then you'll have a little more time for me.
Right.
For you. Okay, another thing from the book. Let go. The tyranny of the perfect. Who of us wants to do things perfectly?
I resemble that remark.
That's why we don't delegate to our family. We want the room cleaned up the right way. The tyranny of the perfect. And what I want to say to the women out there, and I hear this in all the events that I do, we need this reminder that our best is good enough. Our best is good enough. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And then the third thing, why are we so exhausted all the time? What's one of the reasons? Saying no is saying yes to yourself.
Wow.
If you are overcommitted, which most of us are, not having much bandwidth, and then someone says, oh, Helene, I just use this as an example because it happened the other day. I was doing a publicity event, and 5 minutes before someone called, she wasn't in an emergency, but she said, oh, do you have a minute for me? I just want to ask you something. And I said to her in a gracious way, I'll pretend a name, Cindy, thanks for calling me. You know what? I can't help you right now, but if you call me back tomorrow or the next week or whoever or whenever, maybe I'll be able to help you then. And you know what? I know that Alice is probably at home now. Maybe you should call Alice. So I'm graciously saying no, giving a suggestion if I know someone who might be available, and also saying, don't count me out, but just not now. Wow. So I think those three pieces of wisdom I need to hear too.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Helene. I want to comment because I have a 14-year-old, I call her little girl. She's in 9th grade. And one thing that she's already adapted, Helene, is my best is good enough. So, when I'm looking at her grades and this and that, and, we finally say, did you do your best? And if you did your best, that is good enough. So I think not only for us, Helene, and us
That's
adult
beautiful.
grown women, but, we've got our young girls looking at us and modeling how we're handling our day to day, victories and failures and the exhaustion. And yes, we need to be reminded of this, and thank you again for sharing this. This is super important,
Yeah, but
especially for
thank
our
you for being such a great mommy and teaching
Oh,
that to your
thank you.
daughter. Yeah, very.
Oh, I'm loving this. I wish this could go on forever. Helene, would you come back?
Of
Would you come
course,
back and join us?
of course.
The book is Time for Me, Self-Care and Simple Pleasures for Women Who Do Too Much. Notice I said that again that way. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to announce our second set of winners of the Time for Me book, and that's Heather London in British Columbia, Canada. So, Teresa, there's some people in your country that are going to be getting a book today. And Susan Schuller in Hawaii. Oh man, that sounds like a good trip right now. Thank you so much for our winners. Thank you so much for supporting us. We wanted to support you and your personal growth and creating time for yourself because you deserve the self-care in your life. You deserve that. Helene, one last thing. Where can people see you next? I know you're always doing seminars and events and
Come,
workshops.
come to womenworking.com. I'm on Facebook. We're on Instagram at Women Working. We're on Twitter. We're all over the place. Come, I talk, I do lives, and we give out a lot of inspiration and good information, and would love to have you.
Fantastic. And everybody, we have the link to the book that's in the chat, so you can go out and learn more about it and even purchase it on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. Really quickly, I want to try to tell people about today's The Steps to Happiness. And it's so apropos because, Teresa, today you're talking about remembering who you are.
Perfect.
And the guest today is Ramona. I'm trying to remember her last name.
Bernardi, I believe.
Yeah, fantastic coach and massage therapist, and overall beautiful human being. So don't miss that show. That's coming up at 12 noon. And Teresa, also you're going to be having some great courses that are going to be on Aspire. We're getting that all together, but that's coming up in the next few weeks, correct?
Yes, that's right. We have 8-week Steps to Happiness group coaching program that's going to launch, as well as if you're thinking of becoming a life coach, you can become certified with me, and we're going to have that on Aspire as well.
Fantastic. And as always, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, you can learn more. People can learn more about you by going to their website. And you've got something special that's going on.
Yes. So outside of just the normal, coaching sessions, we will have another master class, and I'll be sure to announce that on our next time.
Fantastic. Well, listen, this was a great show, ladies. Oh man, what did you think of Helene Lerner?
Loved her.
That was a treat, Brian. That was a treat.
Yeah, now you understand why I love her so much. She
Yes.
she brings it every
Yes.
time that she's with us, and even just personally, she's just a very beautiful soul, and all about giving love to this planet, and specifically women, but men too. She sees all of us, and she wants to help us create what I call that best life today. So,
Right. Even though
thank you.
we are
Yeah,
just, not being able to see each other, you can feel her light
absolutely.
through those waves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we want to once again thank her for being on. Listen, everybody, we want you to know that we want you to follow us on social media. You can go to our website and join our mailing list. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on YouTube. and even on LinkedIn. So please go and follow us there for, upcoming shows and even upcoming events that involve all of our collaborators who want to help you create your best life today. So with that, on behalf of all of us, Teresa, Dr. Chanel, thank you for joining us for another fantastic episode of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, or you can listen to the rebroadcast at 11 a.m. Eastern. And this is specifically for all our beautiful folks out on the West Coast. Until next time, keep on having those real conversations that empower with passion and purpose. And we are all going to get to the point at which we create a best life today of high quality living. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.